Hi, welcome to another video by Daniel and John, and today we're looking at new springs and shocks for a Discovery 2 2002, and I just want to show you the old ones. These have been in about 2 years. They're brick part.
Super gas ones, yeah.
Super gas. The amount of corrosion on them are about 2 years old. It's just worth noting, that's all. Got probably one of the shocks, so we're replacing it. So that's brick part ones, in case you're thinking of buying them. The last 2 years, the vehicle hasn't had a lot of heavy duty. We decided this time to go for Terrafirma. These are the fronts. Just say at the moment, if you're buying a whole kit for the front and the rear, the fronts are the smaller ones. Comes with instructions and says about the front, just remember that.
Comes with that information leaflet in the box,
yeah.
But it also comes with, when you open the shock, this is what the shock box looks like. But it also comes with this inside as well, just to fit. They're basically fitting instructions, what you need to do and things like that.
That might be a minor point to people, but just says it's a company that thinks about things, because they put it in a waterproof sleeve in case you're outside.
Yeah.
Keep the oil off it so you can still read it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That, yeah.
The quality looks fairly good. There's a bit of a bit missing there. It could be powder coated.
We put this ribbon on the bottom,
just to know.
Just so we know what the fronts were.
Yeah, I think it's just painted on. It's not powder coated, I don't think. They look good quality springs. I don't know if the design is any different. Sometimes they narrow up to create a different effect. They look a little bit different from the brick parts, and these are heavy duty and these are heavy duty, so there is a slight difference in them. There seems to be more, the gap between the coil springs seems to be closer. And then we've got the shock there. Again, that looks good quality. It's not opened at the moment. You keep the strap on till you're ready to fit. Looks pretty.
Nice, yeah.
Stickers on the side.
Yeah.
That's metal, whereas this is a plastic shroud to try and protect it. The only thing I would say with this, it looks like it's been painted. Then it's got a good coating of lacquer on, which is obviously going to help.
New cushion on the bottom.
Yeah, it all looks good, but we'll see.
Also bought the new resonators that.
Yeah, you can sit on the top, and if you see the bottom of the spring is all round, and then the top has got a flat component.
And that just goes the other way round, doesn't it?
Just sits on the top, and that sits in there.
I'll just show you whereabouts that sits in there like that. But then once it's in there, it also goes, pushes up in here like this, like that. So just in case you're wondering how this all goes together, and you're buying it sort of thing.
Yeah.
And we've got new bolts for the top of the shocks.
Yeah.
We are fitting these as well. The shock mount, Terrafirma shock mounts.
Now you can buy, we bought these from JGS, yeah. JGS, and you can buy them individually, or you can buy them as a kit front and rear. We bought them as a kit front and rear, and we bought all the parts from them. We don't know them as a company, I would say that, but their reliability, it's like next day. Even sometimes, you know, if you need something else extra, they'll ship it to you really quick, so it seems like a good company.
Basically, it comes very well packed, and even the shocks come very well packed. They've got bubble wrap inside, and it's very tight in this box. They put the shocks inside the springs, which makes sense. Nice wraps and everything, comes with the components. So what we'll do is that's sort of what we've got, the fronts. We'll do the fronts first, as you can see, and then we'll show you what it's like when they're on, but we'll also do the backs as well.
I would say even after dropping the axles, you can see there, we did have to compress these to get them out.
So if you are thinking of doing this job, this is how we've done it. We've put the chassis at the back on axle stands. Obviously we've removed the springs and the shocks, and the whole axle is just supported with a jack underneath. And then once we've got things in place, we'll just jack it up and put the bolts in, etc. But that's, if that helps anybody who's looking at doing this, where we've got the axle stands,
I think
that's just come down.
Yeah.
Didn't need to remove the drag link, didn't need to remove anything else, even the steering link there, didn't need to remove that. It was just literally those bits.
Drop it down, just be safe when you're doing it, that's all.
Previously we discussed lowering the front axle to fit these new springs. We did use spring compressors to get the old ones out, but what you really need to do, you need to remove the drive shaft from the diff there.
So I'll just show you that, because I know most people know it's this.
That's that drive shaft there, I'll show you, there you go, onto the diff. Now 4 little bolts.
Which are these. The only way we found of getting these out was spanners. The bottom bolt,
So the nut on it,
took a 15.
you can't really get a socket on it either, there's no space.
The top took a 14. It did take a 14. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably...
So you need a 14 and a 15 spanner.
Now, these were awkward to get out and a bit time consuming, but the ease of putting these in and lining everything up where they should be is worth that effort. The other thing we did, when we lowered it right down, we had, look, there's a jack under there. We released that and let it drop as far as it could go. We haven't got any brake discs on or shrouds on to get damaged, so you need to bear that in mind.
One of us, when John tried to get the spring in, I went over the other side and
Just
just
stood on
pushed down just to give the extra room. So basically, you slip it into the resonator first, the flat part, and then under here you'll see on this metal. We need to rearrange this metal plate a little bit. But you'll see on the metal plate,
It dips.
there's like a dipped part. I can show you that, and that's where that piece of the spring slots into.
Yeah. So the end of the spring should be facing away from you at the bottom, basically, and that is how we got now. Lesson learned. I've seen other videos where we tried to do our research again, where they haven't removed that and they've put these in with ease. I don't know how, spring compressors, but you start using spring compressors, you start damaging stuff.
This is a lot easier.
If we were doing the job again, in all honesty, we'd have removed that, the drive shaft, and lowered it down to this point and just pop the yellow ones out, the old yellow ones, and without using spring compressors, which would have been safer, quicker and easier. And these bolts are going to need replacing anyway.
We're going to need to replace them.
So hopefully that helps you avoid the extra time that we've taken and makes life safer for you. Yeah.
So the next thing for us to do is just to sort of jiggle things around, make sure the bolt holes line up for the bottom of the shock. We'll get the shock in, and then we'll get the turret in, and then once the turret's in, we'll then cut the nylon on the shock, let it raise up, and then we'll put the top bolt in.
So we're looking at now getting the springs in and the shocks in and how to get them in. And the easiest way we found was, again, just to remind people, we removed the drive shaft and lowered the vehicle. This base plate, what you need to do is line that up and dry fit with the bolts with the spring on it. And to do that, you can just jack the car up a little bit.
I'll just show you what we've got. So we've got a jack under there. I've just jacked it up just so everything is sort of level at the bottom, so otherwise it's like that.
When you've got your base plate and sort of captive nut holes perfectly aligned, then drop the shock in and position and tighten up. Otherwise, it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've tightened them up so much, and then we'll fit the shock tower, and that'll be in the next part.
Yeah.
But basically, the bottom line is get everything as straight as possible, all lined up before you drop the shock in.
Now got springs in, shocks in, turrets, and all the other gubbins to do with the suspension. Now, in one video, you can recall us taking the drive shaft apart there, removing the 4 bolts. That was to allow us to drop the axle really low, so we didn't have to compress the springs and damage them with the compressor, and it's quite dangerous. That made life easier, and they just literally slid in, which was really good. We followed the instructions, popped the retaining bolt in at the top, left it loose because that's the final tighten when you put your wheels on. But then what happened, we came around to the passenger side, and when went to put the spring in, and obviously what we'd done by having the suspension anchored in
on that side,
driver's side,
but then restricted the
drop of the axle,
movement of the axle. Yeah.
So what we did, we removed the bolt from the driver's side.
On that side.
Literally took it out.
Yeah.
Okay. That allowed us the same height, a lot height, just to be able to slide these springs in.
Yeah, because you need to be able to slide them in really. You don't want to be
So we then fitted this as per manufacturer's instructions, put the bolt in, etc.
Yeah.
Then what we did, we went round to the other side and popped the bolt back in, and that was easy. I haven't seen that in a video anywhere else. There might be out there. I didn't see it, but if you're doing two at the same time,
well, you will be, won't you? Really.
That was the easiest way of, and in my opinion, the safest way of getting these springs without using a compressor. It's a 19mm spanner on these bolts at the top,
and on the nut
socket.
as well. Socket. Yeah.
And the first one took us, say, 45 minutes fiddling around. The second one took us about 20 minutes because we knew what we were doing by that time.
So what we're saying is, get both the springs and the shocks on either side and the shock towers, and then you can raise the axle via a jack or whatever you've got, and then you can then put in the top bolts on the towers. That's what we're saying basically. Don't put that bolt in there first, or whatever side you've done. Leave them both loose, let them rise, and put the bolts in.
But bear in mind the manufacturer's instructions about the final tightening is you leave the bolts at the top of the suspension in the engine bay loose. You put all your wheels back on. You take any supporting axle stands and jacks away, and then you let the wheels take the weight of the vehicle, then you tighten those up.
Okay, so we're going to do the rear springs and shocks. What we've done so far is we've just put the rear part on the axle stands there and there. Jack that up and sort of got it so that we had it high enough to take the wheel off, but low enough for it to be safe, sort of thing. These are the springs at the moment. That's how much thing you've got. We can use spring compressors on it. I suppose once you take the shocks off, the whole axle will drop even more. Obviously you've got the drive shaft there, but we'll hold it on a little bit, but yeah, that's where we are, and we'll come back to you once we start getting more bits off. Right, so we've got the rear shock out. The bolts lower and top are 18mm. One sits there with a nut that side, and then one sits up there, and it just sits in the middle, so you may need to use a bar or mallet, just tap it out, and there's a nut the other side welded in. So that's what it looks like.
Just for a point of reference, these are Brit part
super shock ones, I think.
And about, say, 1.5 years, 2 years old.
Yeah.
Just handy to know how things perform and last.
Poly bushes in as well. So, don't know if they come with that by default.
Just, I mean, they're still serviceable and they're still.
They come up by itself easily.
No.
Maybe they're knackered then.
So
it should come up by itself easily, shouldn't it?
Really. That's not my stomach.
Yeah, okay. Push it down a little bit then, see if it comes up. They're sort of stuck inside or something. Okay, so fair enough.
Don't move at all.
Oh, they don't come up by themselves.
Don't really do a lot.
Okay, so that's where we are at the moment. What we'll do is we'll remove we've got to remove the other shock the other side, but we'll get this spring out. So I think once you remove the shock the other side, the springs will come out a lot easier. We just tied that off there. We're replacing these brake lines with steel ones, stainless steel ones anyway. So we'll give things a clean up like that in there. That in there. There's a lot of
corrosion there.
A lot of crap in there, so we'll clean that up. Okay, so we've got the passenger rear spring out, and we've got the driver rear spring out as well. I'll just show you a little tip.
So the spring was in, and I just got a pry bar.
And just pried it out.
Pried it out, it popped out.
So that's what it looks like. It's got like this little rubber thing for harmonics. You can buy these new, or refit it, whatever you want to do.
I think you'd need some new ones because that is on there.
We will say that we are replacing the Watts linkage as well on this back end. So we will make a separate video about that, and that side is off. but this side is still on and we didn't need to remove it. But I suspect if you was to remove it, then it would make the job, the spring would just come straight out. You know, whatever's easiest, to be honest. So, just need the tools to do it, really. Right, so obviously both springs are out each side, both shocks. Obviously we need to have a bit of a clean up. So the spring plates at the bottom, these things, seem better. They've got two little holes here. Now normally I did think they were like on the front, they were just a bolt that went down that was tapped into the axle, but not on this. We found these two. So 14 bolt heads.
Ah, now you say that, but look what we've got here. I wonder if somebody's put the wrong bolts in here.
Maybe.
Because look, there's a captive nut on the bottom of there.
Yeah, we found these. You might have these on your vehicles, you probably won't. 14 bolt head, 13 nut, nylon nut.
But there's actually captive bolts there, like John says.
So I would have thought they'd be factory default, to be honest, which would make more sense. This is going to have a real good clean up. Yeah, there you go, see? Get the wire wheel in there and clean all this up. I'm guessing maybe they got stripped, so some different bolts,
stripped the threads. Or...
I mean, when we were taking these out, they had these washers on there, big washers, and they didn't look like something the Land Rover would use. They're just so big.
It looks like it should be something of that sort of size.
What, and then just cut it down if you have to replace it.
That is going in.
That's going in. Probably needs a really good clean up though, doesn't it?
So I guess somebody at some point...
What is that, M8 or something?
Yeah, has taken these off. Yeah, and...
do we know what size head that is?
8.8.
I think that's just a...
There's a real old one.
Yeah, anyway, so where's the spring plate? So, we remove the spring plates and they're going to need a good clean up. You'll probably just have your standard bolts going straight through these onto your captive nut. We can't tell you what size they are, we'd like to, but ours doesn't have it on this particular vehicle, so we have to use what we've got. Right, so before installing the springs and shocks, we just bought a couple of new spring plates at the bottom, because the old ones were just in such bad shape. It's just not worth it's not really worth bothering with them. These are like £7 or £8 each, so pretty solid metal, pretty important as well because the spring sits on them. Got a couple of new bolts, washers, we've cut them down, put a bit of copper grease underneath it, and obviously a bit of thread lock on the bolts.
We've had to re-tap the holes as well, so
yeah, we had to re-tap.
10mm.
That was a 10mm tap because there's little captive nuts underneath, so we've done that.
And the reason we just mentioned is this: sometimes this is that rusty and decayed. It looks like it's just part of this whole thing, but they are separate units and they just knock off when you've got the bolts out.
So yeah, as John says, they are separate pieces.
And if they are that far gone and you need to cut these off at the top to get them out, whatever you need to do, if you need to re-tap it, it's 10mm, like we're saying, and just some 10mm sort of high tensile steel bolts to go in. We are trying to pop the springs back in the rear of a Discovery 2, as you know, and we've copper greased everything, top and bottom. We load the axle as far as it'll go, but we've got the Watts link undone as well from these, so it'll drop right down. Now, after all the work we've done on this, one of the frustrating things is trying to get these to stay in.
Oh, we need to actually mention that the way these springs go in,
it's the smallest gap at the top.
Yeah, so make sure they go in like that. Smallest gaps at the top, bigger gaps at the bottom.
See what I mean? There to there, that's at the bottom. You get your hand in there, get your finger in there, that's at the top. Anyway, these go on in there, but they're supposed to fit on here, but they're a nightmare to keep on. Every time I try and put the spring on, I did around the other side, it came. So the simple solution is a couple of cable ties, which then you can cut off when they're in if you want to. That way they don't keep falling off all the time. Now, the easiest way we found of getting these back in, just going to tighten that down a bit. is to put it on there first. So put it on the bottom like that and literally bounce it in. Yeah. There's your spring in. Now that's a lot safer, to be honest, than trying to compress these, because they're quite dangerous, they're really highly sprung. By dropping the axle and taking this Watts linkage off, gives you a chance to do a bit of maintenance under there as well.
Welcome back to the last part of the Terrafirma shocks and springs installation video. So we've got both sides installed. Just need to cut these cable ties. This was helpful for the resonator, rubber resonator install that's up there. Just to say that we jacked the axle up a little bit. We took the nylon strap off this and we just jacked it up either side, just kept an eye on where this was, it fell around here, and then when it was sort of roundabout in the area it needed to go to, we then just cut the nylon strap, and then it just came down, put the bolt in, but it didn't come down too far, it just came down enough. We jacked it up a little bit more, managed to get the bolt in, and that's that installed. So thanks for watching. We hope you find these videos helpful.